Hello, everyone. Welcome to Self-Love You. My name is Jenna Ryan, and I love to talk about self-love and healing and relationships and all kinds of fun stuff. Welcome to the podcast. Today's topic is how to stop beating yourself up. I did do a poll and I asked out of 5 different things what you were most interested in hearing about. And out of the responders, 31% said they would prefer to hear about the topic of how to stop beating yourself up. So I decided that's what we're going to do today. Welcome if you are a new subscriber or a new listener. I really want to welcome you. We've been here about 10 years or more. There's a corresponding blog where I write. I've been writing for years at self-love-you.blogspot.com. It's just a culmination of a lot of different things that I've put out there for years and years. But today we're going to talk about how to stop beating yourself up. So one of the reasons, there's many reasons that you may beat yourself up, that you may be down on yourself, and you may have self-talk, voices in your head that are negative towards yourself. And a lot of us have times where we feel like we're just not good enough. You know, I've heard people say, I'm so stupid. Or, you know, I don't look good, or I'm not this, I'm not that, I don't fit in, I can't do this, I can't do that, or I always do this, I always do that, and just really not even giving yourself a break whatsoever. There are many reasons why this happens. And just to start the video off, this audio off, one of the main reasons is because we have a lot of pain and a lot of misunderstandings about who we are. And there's been a lot of messages throughout culture, from our family of origin, from whatever, that have fostered these messages and caused our minds to come to conclusions that are contrary to our well-being. Beating yourself up is a process of negative self-talk. If you are doing negative self-talk, that's beating yourself up. So there's a lot of things you need to do if you tend to do that to yourself, beat yourself up. But one of the first things is to start listening to what you're saying. Because a lot of times there's all this negative going on that we're saying about ourselves, and we don't even hear it because we're not attuned to it. And some of it could be even going on underneath our consciousness, in the subconscious area, where we don't even know that we're beating ourselves up. And then as you begin to learn what you're saying to yourself and analyzing your self-talk through journaling and counseling and meditation, you can uncover and you can pull off layers of negative self-talk. Like there's a top layer where you've not done any work and you're practically really being mean to yourself. And then you can start being kinder to yourself and start adjusting what you're saying to yourself and get down to the deep layers and see, oh my gosh, way down here, I'm still, having this negative self-talk. So it's layers and layers of messages that your brain has internalized, and places where you are unaware of the true nature of who you are. It is a lot of things. It's also learned helplessness, because if we've learned things about ourselves, then we suddenly, we cut ourselves off before we can even achieve anything. So before we even have a chance, we say, I could never do that. I couldn't possibly do that because I'm too this, too that. It's a lot of really harsh self-judgment. It's also a form of self-invalidation, because perhaps we weren't validated, mirrored, attuned as children and through society. I'm not blaming anyone here. I'm just saying that that's how the culture has been for raising children. There's a lot of invalidation going on. So invalidating yourself by saying, I'm so stupid for thinking that way. I'm so dumb for feeling that way. I shouldn't feel that way. Why do I feel this way? And those kinds of things. And you're really second guessing yourself. You're not validating yourself. And that is what I consider beating yourself up. So let's go into particulars. Let's go into specifics. Like, let's say you made a mistake. Okay? Let's say you made a mistake on the job. And you got this job. You were so happy about this job. And then you made a mistake. And the mistake was so intense or bad or whatever that you were fired. Okay? And on one sense, you made a mistake and you need to learn from your mistakes, and everybody makes mistakes. Nobody is perfect. And you made a mistake, and it's okay to feel regretful about mistakes, but it's another thing to beat yourself up. Because if you beat yourself up, it's really hard to get out of where you put yourself. You hurt yourself when you beat yourself up. You know, hitting yourself with attacks, with words and actions, you know, making yourself feel bad is not going to do you any good. And that brings me to another reason why we beat ourselves up is we think we're supposed to be perfect. We expect perfection out of ourselves when no one in the world is perfect. And it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to make mistakes. And I've been fired from a job before, years and years ago, because of mistakes I made. But, you know, I was learning backwards. I didn't know a lot of things. You know, I think I got stoned one time before a job. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I'm telling you this. And I can't believe I did this. But I did. And it happened. And I learned from that mistake. You can't do that. But it was my coping mechanism. And back then, you know, I'm talking 19 years old. And I didn't have the wisdom not to do that. But after that happened, I gained the wisdom. And beating myself up would have been to say, oh, you're such an idiot. How could you be so stupid? You know, yada, yada, yada. But no one is perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. We all have a part of ourselves that needs to know that it's okay to make mistakes. And we need to have that part of ourselves that says, that's like our higher self, our adult part of ourselves, the part that's nurturing, self-soothing, like the parental role within that says, it's okay. You made a mistake. It's not the end of the world, and we can repair anything that we can repair and move forward and do the right thing in the future. It's okay to be imperfect. Perfectly imperfect is what every person is. And for so long, I went trying to be perfect. I thought you had to be perfect to be loved. And so I was always trying to be perfect, but I always missed the mark. And that lent to me beating myself up a lot and really criticizing myself, trying to get myself to reach a level of perfection that is literally impossible. Because I'm not God, you're not God, we're not God, and we will never be perfect. So beating yourself up involves not giving yourself a break, taking things so hard that you literally just go into a shame spiral until you're so miserable and hurting so bad. And it's a feeling that comes across you. It's a traumatic feeling that makes you feel like you're just worthless and you can't do anything and you always make mistakes. You begin to generalize about your own behavior and your own self, and you just don't give yourself any room. A very important tool for learning not to beat yourself up is getting external validation for the moment, especially when you have unmet child development needs. It's very important to have a counselor or a pastor or someone who is a spiritual guidance person that can be there for you and help you to see yourself from a higher perspective. I think of this kind of like scaffolding. You're a building, and you need to be able to have some space between how you feel about yourself, what you're saying about yourself, and what the truth is. And sometimes it's difficult to see the truth on our own. So we need people from the outside, safe, very safe people who really see who we are and can see what's going on, who can validate and help us to ease the pressure of trying to be perfect or trying to be something, trying to fit into a mold that we will never fit in. So that's why you go to counseling. You go to counseling not necessarily for daily advice, although the advice is very good, but it's more so that you can have someone else who is able to do the mirroring for you that you missed and build a bond with them of trust and start to see really how you deserve to be treated. And when the therapist or the counselor treats you well, you can start treating yourself well. Because that saying of you become like the 5 people that you hang around, the top 5 people, you become like them. And so when other people see you in an appropriate light and they're mirroring that back to you, validating you, that's external validation, then it helps you to become a stronger person. But external validation is not a permanent fix. It's only a temporary fix, like scaffolding in a building that's being built. Eventually, you have to come to a place where you're able to validate yourself, where you're able to soothe yourself, where you're able to talk to yourself in a way that makes yourself feel okay. Talk yourself out of some of the negative things. So a lot of times I find that the negative self-talk, for me personally, comes up in places of leftover trauma or anxiety about my worth or anxiety about whatever that's leftover trauma, archaic feelings. There tends to be a lot of rumination, and this is at a deep level because I've done a lot of healing. So a lot of rumination, and I'll catch it. I'll catch myself just going off onto a tangent at these times that are so important. Really, if we catch ourselves going into a tangent, ruminating, and just, it's like this experience of just one bad thing after another. It's just like bad, 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 bad. Just like where you just really feel a lot of pain from what you're saying to yourself. And it may cause you to collapse and shut down and go into fight, flight, freeze. It may cause you to freeze. It may cause you to not take action. It may cause you to feel unworthy of achieving. It can cause you to have a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is continuing in the negative cycle of whatever you're in. When you hear your voices tell you that you're not good enough or you can't or those people are right or those kinds of things. So it can cause you a lot of problems. So it's important to catch yourself when you are being mean to yourself and begin to write those things down and argue with it. That's like a cognitive behavioral thing. Because your mind, if your mind thinks it, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So if you're thinking these negative things and harmful things about yourself, then that's what you're going to present to the world and to yourself, and it's just going to come true. So you got to stop it. And it's so possible to stop it. There's so much hope here because you can take your brain and really heal and help it to reason using different techniques. You can help it to rethink things. I'm not saying it's totally easy, but you can do it. It's just one thing at a time. So basically your mind has decided a bunch of things about yourself. And a lot of it is toxic shame related, which means it's carried shame, which it means it was handed to you, not actually real shame for anything you've done. It's just literally it was tossed onto you, projected onto you, and you have held on to it. And it's not the truth. It just is a bunch of assumptions that you've made about yourself. Well, the studies of the scientists have shown that our brain will go out of its way to be right. It will sabotage itself to be right. If your brain thinks that you're, worthless and you can't do it, then your brain is so powerful. It will make sure that you have thoughts that keep you in line, that keep you safe from doing anything other than what your brain already thinks. That's why it's so important to know what your brain is thinking, what it's saying. And it's not a matter of shut up, brain. Although sometimes you may have an inner critic and you may need to tell your inner critic to shut up, but it's more of an embracing of who you are and saying, wow, I hear what I'm thinking here, and that is pretty hard. That's harsh. Let me see if there's a way I can re-establish how I feel about that. Or maybe I can find the reason I'm feeling this way. Maybe I'm having anxiety about this new opportunity that's come into my life. Maybe I'm feeling anxious about it. And maybe that has something to do with something else and not even who I am, but just maybe things I've been through. Maybe this is anxiety that I can address and look at and soothe and fulfill, which means find its source and really allow it to release this negative emotion. Maybe I can go and do some work on this one area or on all of these areas. So to put it simply, you should never say anything bad about yourself. If you find yourself saying, I'm so stupid, ever, that means that you've got to rethink what you think you are. And one of the ways they use in the cognitive behavioral therapy documentation that I've read, books that I've read, is really helping your mind to think things through. Like, you're worthless, really? Well, have you ever felt worthy? Have you ever done anything worthwhile? And begin questioning that reasoning in your mind that has made up stories about yourself. And begin to ask questions. Not having tunnel vision, not being catastrophic, not being definitive, but beginning to open up and say, really? Well, if that's the case, then why did you do this? Remember when you contributed to society this way? What about this? What about this? And then you begin to see that your mind is being very black and white and being very all or nothing and not giving you a chance and just automatically jumping to conclusions about who you are without seeing the big picture and without incorporating all the data. Because you are beautiful. You're in reality, you are a beautiful, amazing, competent, capable, lovable, worthy person. And that is what you want to tap into, because underneath all of this negative self-talk is the truth. And there's a voice that may be being drowned out, but it's deep inside. So once I got to a place of really dealing with my negative self-talk, because you have, like, if you have any kind of parental people in your life who, as parents, put you down, even with messages, your mind, according to my studies, creates an internal introject of the parent. So you carry that parent around even if they're no longer with us. And that parent is always in your head just judging you. It's a psychological construct. It's called an introject. And this introject is also the inner critic. And you have, this is all incorporated with your id and your ego and your, super ego and all that really deep psychology. But it's all involved. And so you have to begin to realize who you are and argue with that voice and call the voice out in a very nice way, or sometimes a mean way. It just depends on where you're at. And get to the bottom of it, where there is this beautiful voice within that is constantly saying beautiful, nice, wonderful things to yourself. I believe this is inherent in all people. Just deep, 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 deep within, like I would be, like as I began working on this and listening what I was thinking, really analyzing my thoughts and arguing with them, and not, just arguing in terms of I would write down a thought and then I would give in one color, I would write down a thought, and then underneath in red or blue, I would answer it with the positive. And I would do this in lists. And eventually I got to a place where I was in front of Walgreens and I was about to go in, and I just felt this incredible, peaceful voice. And it was a still small voice, and it was inside, and it said, "You are so loved. I am so happy. And this is such, you're beautiful." All sorts of, I was like, dang, that is so neat. When I was able to tap in to those true things, where I was soothing myself. There wasn't even anything wrong. It just kind of was out of the blue. I just heard it. And it was like God within me saying, "You are wonderful. I'm so happy. This is such a great life. I'm so peaceful." And there was no denying it. It was so true, and so at such a great level. So that's what you really are. And that's where you want to get to, is the place where you're, shedding old negative views of yourself, and you are freeing up the truth of who you are. So you're spitting out the lies about yourself, and you're feeding yourself with truth. Which brings me to affirmations. Sometimes affirmations are helpful. A lot of this stuff may be too deep for affirmations. I don't think you can just sit there and give yourself affirmations and that's going to be, like a Band-Aid. I think that affirmations are useful for specific targeted areas. When you're working on this area, like let's say you're working on your body positivity, and you're really working on loving your body just the way you are. And every time you look in the mirror, you're tearing yourself down. Okay? And when you begin to see that you're doing that, recognize it, stop yourself, catch yourself from that shame spiral. Catch yourself from getting off your own true path by trying to overcompensate for what you think are your weaknesses. And perhaps when you look at yourself and say negative things and believe negative things about your body not fitting the cultural standard of a waif, my body wasn't made to be a waif. I can't. I do everything I can, and it's, it is what it is, and we just have to love who we are. And there's a lot of that culture stuff coming in, and also familial. It's been it's run down my family line of, body conscious, image conscious, and not accepting exactly who you are. Well, when doing this and tearing yourself apart for not being perfect, you can create, issues where you don't eat correctly. Maybe you might overeat. Maybe you might starve yourself and just not take care of your body, or numb out, or just give up. It's not conducive. If you're tearing yourself down and beating yourself up, then it's not going to lead to good results. The good results of a healthy body are acceptance. I love my legs. I love my body. I'm so grateful that I'm healthy. Those kinds of affirmations can become useful when you're dealing in specifics, but also it requires that you become aware of what you're actually saying to yourself and what it is involving, and really categorize, okay, this is regarding my body image, which makes me, that could be tied to my self-worth, which could be tied to social acceptance, which could be tied to love, which could be tied to my libido. It could all be intertwined, and kind of unraveling and seeing where you're off, where you're telling yourself things that are not useful and helpful, and begin to rethink and re-speak and and change your beliefs and break down the schema that you'll never be good enough, that you have to be perfect to be loved. Begin to break that down and begin to find, through affirmation, through repetition, because all of these thoughts and these thinking patterns and these things you're telling yourself took a whole long time to be established. And so now it's going to take repetition to untangle. Another thing you can do is see what you're feeling at the time that you see yourself just go into where you're just tearing yourself down. And you're like, okay, how am I feeling? What's going on? Where am I going? What am I doing? How am I feeling? And asking yourself questions. Where am I feeling this feeling in my body? Am I holding it, in my arm, shoulder, head, neck, gut, legs, feet? Where am I tingling? What parts of my body are activated when I feel this way? What note is being played? What am I trying to tell myself through these negative assertions? What am I hiding from? What benefit am I getting from saying these things? Is this keeping me from having to get out of my comfort zone and meet new people? Is this keeping me safe from having to interact with others? How is this experience in this process of putting myself down, beating myself up, how is that serving me? What am I getting out of it? And see if you're getting something out of it. And if you are, then realize that you don't need that. And you can turn things around little by little, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a process. But little by little, you can soothe that part of you that's afraid of not being accepted and say, it's okay if if other people don't accept you, because I accept me and I love me and I've got this and I have these other alternatives, and I can be imperfect. It's okay for me to be imperfect. And I am not stupid, and I am not crazy, and I am not whatever it is that you're telling yourself. You've got to remind yourself, nope, that's not right. I need to go journal about that and really ask myself, why am I saying that? Because I can promise you, friend, that's not who you are. That is a coping mechanism that you have learned to use through the messages of your family of origin, culture, whatever it is, that those are messages, and you get to decide which messages you're going to allow to stay within. And you get to change those messages because you are in control. Way more than we realize, we are in control of the things that we tell ourselves, the story that we allow to repeat over and over. And you're wonderful, and you are good, and you're going to make it through this. And so be easy on yourself. Go easy on yourself. Give yourself a break. It's not your fault that you're saying these things to yourself. This is how you've been raised. You've been adapted to be this way. And now that you know, you can start to do something about it when you're ready. Okay, that is all for today. I hope that was helpful. What do you guys think? Did you like what I'm saying? Does it make sense? If there's any part of this that I need to clarify, please leave it in the comment below. If you have a specific situation and you want to bring it up, feel free, and I will maybe address it in a future podcast, question and answer type thing. And these are just my experiences of healing from, low self-esteem, feeling unworthy, learning to love myself. And it's a journey, it's a process. It takes time, it takes effort, but eventually you can get on the other side to where your mind is so much nicer to you and such just so much better. And you can really function so much better when you're being kind to yourself and giving yourself a break. Okay, until next time, this is Jenna Ryan, and I will talk to you soon.